Croeso Bell, my friends. I hope this finds you well. In a rare move, I'm actually putting two videos up in one day. I know it's strange. You'd be sick of the sight of me now. But I thought that despite my putting up last 2 week ago's video, which I postponed due to the death of Queen Elizabeth, I also thought today's readings did need to be acknowledged. Again, if you want to pause me and go Google these, it's 1 Timothy 6, 6 to 19. And the other one is Luke 16, 19 to 31. Now, I know you're thinking, oh, two readings. Why? I'll share. The reading from Timothy talks about the pursuit of wealth. Talks about, it's that very famous reading, money is a root of evil. And what Paul says is that to pursue money above all else drives us away from faith, drives us away from Christ. And I think we can see that in today's society. Now, some people, of course, will say, you can't be too political, you can't get out there and you can't mix it up, and you can't talk about things like the budget. I would argue, yes, you can. In fact, we have an obligation to talk about these things. We could do it respectfully and we can do it kindly, but we do need to talk about them. With the most recent budget that's come out, it's not particularly helpful if you're on a low income. That's a sad fact. And some, of course, could liken I've seen some pretty interesting tweets this morning. There's a few people have put these readings up there and said, look, this needs to be talked about. They're right. And so looking at the readings, Timothy, what St. Paul says, if we have good food and clothing, be content with that. Those who get rich fall into temptation and a trap, into many foolishness and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. What a stark image that is. And I think we can see that reflected more and more in society. We only need to look as far as the super rich, the Jeff Bezoses, the Elon Musks of this world. There's nothing wrong with having money, and this is the controversial part of this video. There's nothing wrong with having money, and I'm gonna say that. It's what you did to get it and what you do once you've got it that matter. Now, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, they've got money. What they did to get it, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not entirely sure. But my point when mentioning those two is, what do they do when they've got it? Do they build homeless shelters? Do they feed the poor? Do they clothe the cold? Do they build charities? Or do they build rocket ships and try to beat each other to Mars? There it is. That's the nub of it. But even then, looking to our gospel reading, it's about a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. And at his gate was a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores, longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. I'm going to be very political here, and unashamedly so. That, almost in its entirety, is how this budget looks to people that are on low incomes. Longing to eat what falls from the rich man's table. Of course, people say, it's trickle-down economics. Doesn't work. In theory, a lot of things work, but in practice, seldom do they. Because, of course, once you start practicing things, human greed takes over, and that's exactly what Paul is counselling against in Timothy. Greed. There's that film, isn't there? Wall Street. Michael Douglas gives that very famous speech, greed is good. Totally off the mark there. and I would absolutely disagree with him. Greed, he argues, greed is good in a corporate sense. Greed is good in the sense of crushing your competition. That's so anti the gospel, it's untrue. That is so anti what Jesus would say. It's almost the total antithesis. The gospel reading today, we hear about how the rich man just couldn't see the human behind the suffering. Friday it was my day off, and I went for a walk around the local town, and there's a guy there selling the big issue, and I sat in Greg's having a cup of tea and a sausage roll, and I watched this guy trying to sell the big issue, and nobody was biting. So what did I do? I went and bought him a cup of tea and a cookie. And I took him to it. And I'm not looking for a pat on the back for that. I'm really not. I did it because it's the right thing to do. Because I saw the human being that was stood out there just trying to make a living. And I think if we could all be a bit more like the rich man should have been and see the human behind the suffering, it would be so much better. And while it's so easy to go on a rant about the Conservatives, to go on a rant about the super rich, we have to acknowledge that they are humans too. But they're humans that need to change their behaviour. There are humans that need to change their mindset. There are humans that need to realise that God needs to be above wealth. And that's exactly what St. Paul is counselling against in his letter to Timothy. St. Paul is saying, look, have money. There's nothing wrong with that. But what you do with it matters. And I think there's great swaths of society these days that they just don't do enough with it. They just don't do the right things with it. And so, brothers and sisters, what I would say is, greed is not good. I'm going to counter Gordon Gekko and I'm going to say greed is bad. Greed is destructive. Greed pierces us with many pains. Greed leaves us to end up like that rich man sat in Hades begging Abraham to send someone to warn their family. Ebenezer Scrooge is a wonderful example of this. Scrooge, he gets the chance to actually put it right while he's still alive. But the idea that the Ghost of Christmas Future shows him, where people frankly are glad he's gone, is a stark reminder that death is not the end. And like the Gospels tell us, those who have their rewards now, those who have their pleasures now, have not got much to look forward to there. So have the money. It's okay to have the money. It really is. Have the money. Do something with it. Do some good with it. Feed someone poor. There's a very good friend of mine, a communications expert. I'm not going to name names. I saw a tweet from him yesterday, and honestly, the question, it was just a small question he tweeted, and it's absolutely stuck with me. And it's a question that I'm going to start asking myself at the end of every single day. Who have you helped today? You that's exactly it. Who have you helped today? And I can only thank him for putting that tweet up, because he's really helped me there. And so, brothers and sisters, I would ask you to take this away and think of this question. Who have you helped today? If I had the chance, I'd sit the super rich down. I'd sit the Jeff Bezoses and the Elon Musks down, and I'd sit the Conservatives down, and I'd say, who have you helped today? Have you bought a cup of tea for the guy selling the big issue? I'm no saint. I'm really not. I get so much wrong. But sometimes you've just got to do something because it's the right thing to do. And so, my friends, I'm going to bring this into land, and I'm going to say this. It's not a bad thing to be wealthy. It's a bad thing to be wealthy at the expense of other people. Use that wealth to protect others, to help others, to feed others. If you use the wealth to live the Gospels, excellent, well done, you're doing it right. And I can't thank you enough for that. And so, that brings us to the end of this particular one. And I don't think I got too political. At least I hope I didn't. But do take care, brothers and sisters. And I'll see you soon. God bless.